Recording. All right. Well, good afternoon, team. Thank you guys for agreeing to meet on a Saturday, which I know is sometimes a bit difficult considering our lives are the work right now. Work life and work life. All right. So, to not waste the time, we have our Zoom meeting agenda in front of us here. So I won't insult you by reading it because it's right there, but we're going to start with introductions and then we'll establish our timekeeper and just kind of follow what's there. All right. And I'll start by introducing myself. My name is Chris Robinson, and I am the facilitator for this meeting.
And I am Amy Foreman, and I am in Sampson County as an instructional coach.
I'm Salita Simpson, and I'm a school counselor in Orangeburg Consolidated School District on the admin team.
My name is Megan Brown, and I am currently teaching 8th grade math and Math 1 at Mill Creek Middle School in Catawba County in North Carolina.
Hey, I'm Antron Franklin. I'm currently teaching 6th grade um, academy prep in Sumter, South Carolina.
I actually forgot to mention all the other things other than my name. I'm at Great Falls High School in Chester County, and I am teaching high school English, whatever it is that they tell me to teach. Currently, it's 3 and 4 at the time.
Okay.
All right. Well, it is good to see all of you face to face digitally, of course. The first thing we want to do is establish a timekeeper to kind of keep us on track. Um, who will be our timekeeper for this meeting?
I'll be the timekeeper.
Okay, awesome. And we started our meeting at 12, so no matter what happens at 12:40, we would need to be done. We want to try to give maybe a minute and a half to go through each round of questions. And so if we can I think a good way to establish how ideas would be shared is if we digitally raise the hand. I want our timekeeper to be able to do that, and that will decide uh, when we should kind of close down what it is that we're sharing concerning the questions. That way, everybody gets a chance to share and answer adequately. Okay, is everybody in agreement with that?
I am, yes.
Okay. Awesome. All right. So our first set of questions, it's um, describe your experience with leading your PLC. A further breakdown of that is this PLC model, is this the PLC model your school uses? If not, how do you introduce that PLC model? What went well? What do you wish you had done differently? And what did you learn from leading?
Okay, and I believe I am up first. And so, like I said before, I'm an instructional coach. So for me, it's a little bit different. I've been leading the PLCs for at least the last 2 years, if not 3 years. However, our PLC model is not the DeFora model. It has basically been a time we have looked at data. We do to segregate data often. However, we don't get into the cycle that he proposes, and I've never really had training on that. I didn't have experience as a teacher with true PLCs. It was grade level meetings. It was what do we need to tackle this week, things of that nature. So I'm really trying to get into more of the DeFore model, and we are actually starting next week with a planning cycle. As far as this PLC, I have two ESL teachers on my team and the principal, and I brought them in because they don't really get that time to collaborate. And I realized that they don't have access to all of the data. So I helped them to kind of look at that. What I wish I had done differently is give them time to look at it ahead of time because they don't have access to it all the time. They didn't really feel familiar with it, and so they needed more time with it. And what I learned was they need more support. I didn't realize, or I wasn't even thinking about, I was so focused on the homeroom teachers that they really do need that support as well, and they need to understand how to use the information that they have available to them.
Okay, I see the hand raised by Megan, so we'll kind of pause you right there. All right, thank you for sharing that though. All right, next.
Hi. So my PLC was very good. Um, I led it, and I had two teachers, also had an instructional coach along with the assistant principal. And it was very interesting. They let me lead, and I do attend the PLCs, but not necessarily involved with the deep dives of it, the way that the teachers are. So when I led the PLC, it was good to see. And what I decided to do was we were all going to do it together. So we accessed the data together. We noticed patterns. We talked about it outwardly, and we used the 5 fifths model where we use hand signals to talk about what we agreed about. And what stood out the most was that they were very open. Once they saw certain patterns, they could recognize within themselves what they could do better. So that helped me to see that my learning was okay in that space. They accepted me not knowing, and it went very well. So that was my experience.
Good. I believe am I third? I think I'm third.
Yes, you
Okay.
are.
All right. So, our school actually does use the PLC model that we're using now. It's weird though, because when we meet as a district, we don't. We're more close to it with our actual schools. So I can say that we do use it, I guess, locally, but in terms of how we meet as a district when we're addressing needs across all of the schools on the grade level, it doesn't happen. Um, when I held my PLC meeting, I wish I had given digital copies of the data as well, because that would have allowed them to look at it ahead of time before we came to our meeting. Instead, I had hard copies for them because I was thinking, okay, well, we may need to mark up the data and, make some connections that way. So that was one of the things I really, really wish I had done second time around. And so what did I learn from leading that PLC meeting? I learned that leading doesn't mean knowing everything. There's a certain
Exactly.
level of ignorance that you come to the table with because you just don't know what other people's experiences are. And sometimes those different angles give different looks to the same set of information. And there can be some really good revelations that come out of not knowing at first, like the discovery spaces are really good and genuine. And I've come to enjoy that part of the PLC. It makes you excited about wanting to find an answer. All right, and that's my time.
Okay, so let me reset the clock for myself here. So my PLC, so normally at my school, we don't really do the PLC model. This was kind of my first, I think, true real PLC, because I think some people call PLCs and they're not really. So like grade level meetings, math department meetings, those things we were having, but we weren't looking at the data. We were just kind of discussing what we were doing in our classes. So I feel like this was very eye-opening to what an actual PLC is. And for the people that I brought in, I think it was very eye-opening as well. I also pulled the school counselor because I feel like they have so much information behind the scenes about what's going on with some of these kids that I don't personally have. They're going to these kids' homes and they're learning a lot about these kids, things that I don't know. So I thought it would be good to pull them in using that kind of data along with, the student growth data and things like that. Things that went really well. They were very attentive to me. We were all attentive to each other. Just kind of learning how to even form a PLC, how to look at the data, things like that. Things I would have done differently, allowed myself more time specifically to explain what it is, to kind of show them different models of what a PLC is, because we really just didn't have a good idea of what that was. So I would have definitely given ourselves more time. And like you said, with having the hard copies and the digital copies, I think that would have been helpful.
Awesome. I believe that leaves Antron.
You're up, Antron.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. So, with my PLC, well, at my school, it's more grade level and department meetings versus PLC. And I have an instructional coach and two um grade level teachers on my team as well. The instructional coach, she really break down the data for me, so I was able to really understand how to read it as far as from the district level, state level, and grade level as well. Um, I was a little nervous. I mean, I can't lie to you because it was my first time actually leading a PLC. And what went well for me is I had support like from the principal. She's all about setting you up to be successful, and it really helped me, and it showed. And for some things, what was different, um oh, what I could have done different was, I think somebody mentioning about having an outline for them, and then give them more time so they can actually see what I was going to present to them. So that was one thing that I could. Uh,
You got a
what?
hand raised from Megan, our timekeeper. You wanna
Oh,
you
I'm
wanna
sorry.
say that you wanna
I'm
say that
sorry.
last thing?
I didn't hear you.
You wanna say that last thing really quickly, and then we'll move to our data dive.
Oh, what did I learn
Mhm.
is I value everybody's opinion about the students, because my first year at that school, and then I had teachers that was there for like 5 to 10 years, and they really gave great insights on the different students.
Okay, that's solid. To be new in a building, but also I heard you say you have the backing of your leader and how she tries to set you guys up for success. That's a big deal. I think all of us can attest. If you have the leadership backing you, things just flow differently for you in your building. And that's good. All right, so we're going to move to our data dive section. The things we want to discuss concerning the data, we want to share what went well, what we learned about available data, what you learned about disaggregating or breaking down of that data. Did you have to redirect in your PLC discussion? And if you did, what were the techniques? And share how you moved your team from the consensus state to identifying exactly what the most pressing need is. And so, Amy, we'll start with you again.
Okay, so for our data, we use the M-Class data through Amplify. I am at an elementary school, so that was the data that I knew that the EL students that we would be able to pull for. And what went well was we were able to identify the lowest areas in reading for these students. And when we look at the progression of foundational reading skills, they were weak in letter sound knowledge, irregular word spellings, and fluency. Fluency seems to continue to be an issue. And then you can actually, with M-Class, you can dig into their probes, which just means you can look at how they actually responded on the assessment. And these are timed assessments. They get 1 minute for most of them. And what we found was there was differences in their letter sound acquisition and their letter naming. So there's been debate around the research and what is best as far as instruction goes for teaching letter naming and letter sounds simultaneously. And then for the fluency, as a school, we scored really well in accuracy. But when it comes to the rate at which they're reading, it consistently is below where it needs to be. So we're having discussions around what we can do about that as a school, but also with our EL population. I didn't have to redirect anybody. It's a small group of people. It's two teachers, myself, and the principal. We don't have an AP at my school. So it's just us, and they work really well together. So I did not have to do any redirection.
Okay. All right. What went well at my data dive was that our staff had already looked at some of the places that we were thinking about in terms of how to find the need that was most pressing at school. And they had also done some very intense digging. But even with that, as we looked together, we still saw patterns. It was good to see that we could all be on the same space. I was very intentional about making sure we all saw the same data. And I think you hear, and sometimes you're not really focused in, but we actually was able to track, and you could hear the same answers coming. And so that's what actually went well. It was obvious to see that math was what we needed to focus on just because of the trend data that we found. So it was not so much trying to compel them. The evidence did that for us. As we disaggregated the data, it was discussion about why some of that happened. And so when we did that, there was the pulling in and going back to focusing more on, let's talk about where the data is sending us, and then we'll get to the part where we talk about the why. And so that was not very hard to do. Sharing how I moved the team to consensus. Here again, using the data. We're a small school. We do PLCs on a weekly basis, and it's just what we do. It was relatively easy and very open.
You see the hand there. All right, thank you for that as well, both of you. So what went well for us, there was a lot of different looks at the data from a lot of different team members that my team has, I think they said 3 to 5, I have 5. And so we were able to come together, but everyone kind of saw something different, but it was also once they pointed out, it's like, oh, we see that too. You know what I mean? So there was a lot of agreement about what was seen too. What I learned is data can be confusing until it is slowly dissected. You cannot just rush through that process. It was the longest, I'm going to say it was the meat of our meeting, the second meeting, because it took me 2 meetings to really have my meeting the way it was supposed to go originally.
Right.
But the data, you just could not speed through it. We had to stay there for a while, and it was necessary. What I learned about disaggregating the data is that surface level digging into the data can just leave valuable information out of the decision-making process when you're trying to identify that most pressing need. We almost made a mistake and said one thing was the need until we dug a little deeper. And we were about to be in a totally different subject area. I didn't have to redirect in the meeting, but the techniques that I thought of were things just as simple as just raising your hand, or what I call a polite, soft interrupt, just to kind of, not be offensive to anybody, sometimes give them a moment to share that last thought and then move forward. The way we moved from consensus to the most pressing need, the team would agree on what was perceived for each piece of data that we looked at, because we were looking at MAP. Okay, I see the hand. We were looking at MAP, we were looking at SC Ready and EOC data because we are a middle high school put together. And so there were times when if information was brought into challenge, we would decide whether to accept the new info as valid or invalid. And that's how we moved into a collective provable answer to what the most pressing need is. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so we basically mostly looked at EVOS data, and a lot of the teachers had really never, I'm a data person, so I love to dive and look at data, but I'm also a math teacher, so that makes sense. But some of them have never really broken apart EVOS and looked at what it is. And something crazy about our school, the last 3 years, we have been like -9 growth as a school on EVOS, but we've had the highest proficiency in the district. So our kids are really high and they're still passing, but they are not growing. And that's been this thing that the last 3 years, we come in with a lot of high kids in our feeder, and but then we don't grow them like we should. And so that was just explaining the difference between growth and proficiency, because the counselor had no idea what the difference between those two things are. And so just looking at all the puzzle pieces, again, data, it's a lot goes into those EVOS predictions, those EVOS things. So it's just a lot of data, and if you're not in it all the time, you don't really know what you're looking at. So really just having to look at that data and talk about the different puzzle pieces. I didn't really have to redirect anybody in the PLC just because there's only a few of us. I did find that it was interesting. We have a brand new principal this year. And so he was really interested in all this data because he's coming in brand new. He's looking at our growth from last year and he's like, what the heck is going on? So I think he was very involved. He was very helpful as well because he has experience in other schools. So that was very helpful. And see, how would you? So we basically saw that math was definitely the biggest area, especially seventh grade. I think they had like a negative 11th growth last year. So we wanted to focus in on that seventh grade math because we felt like that would be where we're getting them high from the elementary schools and then we're dropping them in seventh grade. So that kind of led us to where we went.
Okay.
What went well with for me was like everybody agreed that on the lowest area because like I said before, some of the individuals they was there before. So it's like they already knew or they had an idea of which area that was low. And they was right when it comes to identifying the data because they were saying something about the transition from I guess elementary to middle school as far as the sixth graders was concerned, and them being able to learning how to adapt to new environment. And that's where the biggest downfall was with them. And and for data, I was looking at the EVOS data. That's what our district used. But I was confused. Like I really was. 'Cause I never had to identify like data like that. And I mean I know it's gonna take me some time, but I know I get through it. And what I learned um is you can not identify kids by name, but more so grade level. Um um they broke it down to like it even had something at the time of the day. But that's why I didn't understand about that. Because I more so when it's kind of time of day, I was thinking about like discipline, like when things happen, not more so on the verge of like kids being better in the morning. Take oh shoot.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was about to say, so the hand right there. No, no,
We get
you
it.
can finish that last thought though. I understand you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
How did you guys go from like your consensus to your most pressing need? I think that was the last question in the data drive set.
See how you move the team to a consensus on the most. Um, but they already had a general idea of the most pressing need. So we really, only thing we did was try to come up with like different strategies to being able to help the ones that was the lowest.
I got you. So there was already a preconceived notion of what that greatest need was. So
Yes,
it was just a
yes,
matter of making sure the data confirmed that.
yes, sir.
Okay, I got you. All right, awesome. Thank you for that. Okay, I wanted to make sure, let me pull that off screen because I believe there were uh, some other things they wanted us to address if we had time. So I'm going to kind of slide that over onto our meeting space. Thank you guys for being respectful of our timekeeper and her hand gestures as well. I say a lot, just kind of roll past that. All right, so our other, share what has been your biggest challenge so far in the program. Share how you think you have grown in your leadership skills and anything else you wish to share. And we're doing pretty good on our time here, so go for it, Amy.
Okay, so my biggest challenge so far in the program has been time. With having class on Wednesday night, that only gives me 2 days to get the PLC taken care of. And if anything comes up in class that changes anything with the PLC aspect, then I have to make those adjustments quickly. So basically, I'm scheduling my PLCs on Thursdays, but I'm not always in my building on Fridays. So that gives me one day to have my PLC, make adjustments, do all the things. And time is just an issue for me all around because I'm in an elementary school. We only get 30, 35 minutes in our PLC. So it's always that time crunch. So I'm trying to get all the things in about 30, 35 minutes. And if changes have to be made, there's just nowhere to go with it. So that has been the biggest challenge for me for that. Um, and then I think for how I've grown is just seeing outside of those regular homeroom teachers and knowing that they're the support for those students, they need that collaboration too. And my school is 60% ESL. So I don't know why I didn't see this sooner, but it's been a light bulb of you really need to be spending more time with these teachers that are supporting our highest population of students. And APA. APA has been a challenge as well because it's been like 15 years since I got my master's the first time. So I forgot a lot of stuff. So I'm trying, y'all.
Well, for me, the biggest challenge again, I think, was time as well, just because as a school counselor, when I was meeting with one of the faculty at the university for this program, I was also in a meeting with the suicide. I had the police, I had students. I'm trying to hold that together for a moment. I need to get with my principal. It was just all over the place. So any given day, I'm just all over the place. And so for me, time has been the biggest challenge. What I've done to meet that challenge is I've been talking to a colleague and looking at how I can better organize what I do know is coming and what I don't know I can't do anything about. I have to respond when I have to respond. In terms of leadership skills, um, I think I've always had some leadership skills. I think for me, the biggest thing is knowing that the faculty respect the work that I'm doing and they treat me like one of their team members. And I was listening to Antron. When you look at how students are dealing with things, it's so important that MTSS structure, along with the data, tells you so much more about why that data trend is happening. When you know that a kid has lost a parent, if you know that something else specific has happened, it can help you understand why your data is dipping and try to put in strategies to help with that. And so for me, that's been my experience, just growing and allowing them to feed me as well. I've been very open and transparent about what I know and what I need to learn. And they've been open about sharing information, and it's been reciprocal. And so for me, that's been a wonderful experience.
My biggest challenge so far in the program, gosh, I don't know if I can identify a particular one. I just felt like life was lifing at a time when I did not need it to do that. We started that grad school on a Wednesday. My son got the flu the next day. I got sick the day after, and we were out that next week. So I couldn't meet with my team because I'm not at work. When I do get back to work, the people that I needed to meet with on my team were either not in the building themselves or they were on a field trip. And
Wow.
it made falling behind him. It was impossible to stay caught up. And so the next week, one of my students in my third block class died in a car accident. And it's a very small community. So our community was reeling. I get iffy about how much of it I can share because I don't want to be emotional about it, but we took it very hard. He was such a good kid. So there was too much going on surrounding what normally would not be a distraction for me focusing. Because as a student, I'm a lot like Amy. I haven't been in grad school in a long time, but even when I
Yeah,
was, MLA was the order of the day, not APA. So I struggled with
exactly.
I was going bonkers, and Stedman was eating me up in those papers and those comments. And I'm trying to focus on what he's saying, but life is still happening. It was a lot. I can't say anything except it was just overwhelming. Um,
Yes.
but in terms of how did I grow to meet that, if I'm real with you, I had to spend some significant time with the Lord in prayer about a lot of stuff because I had to decide. I was like, am I going to keep going? Am I going to be able to like mentally move forward through this with, and it was kind of like I heard a sermon, and the sermon was kind of like, you give your best and then you trust God with everything else. And so I kind of found myself in that place. Um, to the point where I even had to respond to Dr. Stedman. I was like, my personal best is definitely better than what you're seeing, but this is all I've got right now, but I'm going to
Right.
give you better. I promise I'm going to give you better. And yeah, I think that's in a nutshell what it was for me.
Right.
So I would say the biggest thing is also time, just finding time to teach and then grade papers and then take care of my own two children at home who are 4 and 6. And I have a husband and just all the life things. And I knew going into this that was going to be my biggest thing because I was waiting until they were a little bit older when they wouldn't need mommy as much, because I feel like that's hard. If you see me on the Zoom calls on Wednesday nights, I have to like black out my screen because I got a kid asking me a question or I need to go do something. So like, I'm just a busy bee. And so finding time is really hard. I'm finding it, but my husband has to work with me because it's a lot. And really, honestly, the APA thing, I've kind of figured it out, but my brain still doesn't like it because I feel like those things should be capitalized, and I still want to put two spaces after a period, and I'm having to retrain my brain, which is really
Yes.
hard.
Yes.
And so that has been difficult. I think I'm managing it. Without those helpful hint documents, I don't think I would be here. Because those have helped tremendously. But really just for me, it's just been the time constraint. But I'm making it work and we're getting through it. We're going to do it.
Awesome.
Okay, so I guess I throw myself in the mix too with time when it comes to time. Listen, from teaching to class, from coaching to practicing, it's all about time. And there's not enough time in the day, to be honest with you. But I mean, it's just the biggest challenge for me. And when we first started off, I can't lie. I wanted to give up, but I couldn't at the end of the day because I mean, I know it's different obstacles out here, and you just gotta push forward and learn from it. Um, and like a lot of teammates, like y'all was saying about the APA. Listen, I never had so many mistakes, and I and he gave me feedback, and I thought I did what he said, but it still wasn't right. I'm like, what am I doing wrong? It,
Right.
I'm frustrated. I can't say it. I was, but I'm learning. I'm learning from it, and I'm trying to move forward, and I'm stay positive.
Yeah.
I hear you on that. I
I
hear you on
agree.
that, Sean.
That's all I
I
can do.
agree. Yeah.
I don't think any of us can disagree with anything
None
you
of that.
said. We can
Yeah.
all identify. Um, we have, and by the way, let me point this out. If you're not aware, when we have our meetings, because I'm sure will have to happen in the future, if you look at my pointer up here, our remaining time is always visible right here at the top. So we always know how much time we've got left. We've got about 3 minutes left.
Okay.
And so we can kind of speak to whatever in terms of anything else we want to share. I can definitely say, Antron, I agree with you. I coached basketball last year. I decided not to coach this year, and I really wanted to. I decided to coach last year because I knew I was about to have an influx of basketball players hit my grade level, and I wanted relationship with them outside of the classroom. So I was like, let me use that. I couldn't do that this year because I just knew this was going to be an intense process. But what you're saying is true. It seems like there's never enough time. And I think everybody has a story. I think everybody's
Yes.
meeting, when they hit that anything else to share, you're going to hear the story of, I'm fighting to stay in this program right now.
Exactly.
That's
Yes.
what it is.
Exactly.
Yes.
And I'm just going to say thank you to all of you. Special thanks to Megan. I don't know if
Yes,
Megan has
thank
made herself available
Good
to
job with the
anybody else, but
timekeeping.
Megan has saved my bacon, so to speak, a couple of different times when I'm like, I just can't find something. I need some help here, and so and I know she has the same list of things we have to do. She has a whole spouse and kids, and they're small. Thank you for even making yourself available in those spaces. I know you have things to do, and sometimes it's not always comfortable. I want to try to match your energy. That's what I'm going to try to do. So if I can be helpful to anybody, I'm willing to try that as well.
Right.
So any
We
final
have to,
thoughts from?
we're in it together and we are going to get out of it together. I keep thinking when he said, if you can make it 3 weeks, you can do the rest. So in
Right.
my mind, I'm like, we've made it 3 weeks. We
Right.
can do the rest.
Right.
And
Right.
yeah, like Chris was saying, like if y'all need help with anything, if I need help with anything, we have to do, I mean, we have to be in this
Right.
together or we're not
Right.
going to succeed. And so I think it's great that we have to actually do these Zoom calls and be in teams because you do have someone you can trust to lean on and ask for guidance. And I think that's so helpful. So
It
helpful.
is. It
Exactly.
is. It
Yes,
is.
I just want
And
to.
I would actually like 1 minute with you guys off the recording just to talk about something.
Okay.
Okay.
What I'll do
All
is
right.
I'll send another Zoom link out real quick because we have literally 1 minute left.
Okay.
Antoine, you had something real quick.
Oh, I'll wait till the other Zoom.
Okay,
Okay.
for sure. All right. Well, listen, thank you guys for making this a very pleasant, painless experience. I know we did a lot of prep work on the front end and we have kind of worked out the kinks so that our time flowed really well. I think we did better than our expectation.
Right.
And so I think we set a pretty good precedent. So let's keep up the good work, guys.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.